I mean, this is a fundamental change in the way we've always seen things on the battlefield. You usually looked up to see whether or not there was an aircraft in the air. Well, today you don't have to see an aircraft, but you're viewed by everybody everywhere all the time. Your position is always known, and with thermal signatures, it's very difficult to hide anybody. So all of these things come together, and we have an enormous strategic disaster on our hands if you're Washington, D.C. But I think Trump has discovered that he can manipulate markets. He can say, this is a mini war. This won't last too much longer. The Iranians, they really want a deal. All of that is nonsense. But it's worked. And it's worked, Stein, because the people in New York City on Wall Street that are involved in these trades don't know anything about warfare. By the way, the people on Wall Street don't know anything about mining either, because they've probably never seen a mine. They've never been to the field. One of the first things that you've got to do is you've got to go out and see what you're dealing with. When I first became involved with coal, I got on the plane and I flew to southern Kentucky and I started walking into and out of mines and all over the countryside to understand what I was dealing with. Most people don't do that. All of these failures in the past and in the present come together and leave people not understanding what's really going on. But here's the rest of the story. President Trump can't conceal this much longer. 2 more ships tried to leave the Persian Gulf. They were turned back. We sent 2 surface combatants towards the Persian Gulf. They were warned off. The Iranians fired warning shots effectively in their direction. And in the meantime, the Iranians took under fire some more oil infrastructure in the United Arab Emirates. And people need to understand that the United Arab Emirates have been allied with and supportive of Israel and anything that it could do that was damaging to Iran for decades. So this has been an opportunity for Iran to pay them back for all the damage that they've inflicted on Iran. The real question is, what's next? And I think President Trump is trying to make that decision. And the problem for him is that the right decision is not the decision he wants to make. The right decision is to say, look, this isn't working. There is no good military solution to opening the Strait of Hormuz. And I understand that there is a humanitarian question now. We're facing famine in many parts of the world over the next 6 to 12 months. I don't want to see that. I don't think anybody does. And so as a result, I'm going to suspend our military operations and I'm going to disengage our forces from this war. We will have to find a different way to resolve our disputes with Iran. But there are 2 problems with that. First of all, that demands a certain amount of humility, and humility is a word that does not exist in President Trump's vocabulary. And then secondly, you've got Israel, and Israel is ultimately the catalyst for this entire war. There are no vital strategic interests driving Washington to war against Iran. Washington has gone to war with Iran because that's what Israel and its lobby in the United States and its agents here, its billionaire supporters want. And Trump has responded to that. But he was misinformed at the beginning. He was told this would be quick, 3 or 4 days, maybe 5, maybe 10 days. It'll fall apart. He believed what the Israelis told him. We did not tell President Trump that. When I say we, I mean people in U.S. military uniform or intelligence. But he's in a tough position now because he expected an easy win. He thought the government would crumble. Then we went through the decapitation strikes, killed the leadership. That didn't work. And so now we've fallen back on the simple task of trying to destroy Iran. Well, Iran's the size of Western Europe. I mean, that's like saying we're going to destroy the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Spain, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy. Really? And you plan to do this in what, a few days? So this whole thing is out of control. And the strategic initiative has passed to Iran because the Iranians can absorb more punishment and endure more pain for much longer than we can.
Do you think the next logical progression in this war with Israel being the clear incentive behind it, like you outlined earlier, would be desalination plants, infrastructure, power plants, like Trump already hinted at just a few weeks ago.
Yes, I think so. When you escalate, one of the things that happens in air and missile campaigns is that you begin to destroy whatever you can find. Remember, we've already failed to destroy the underground facilities where not only missiles and drones are stored, but where they're actually manufactured. And these facilities are spread all over the country. So it's very difficult to find them. When you do find them, it's very difficult to penetrate them. And we're pretty confident, based upon what's happened during the so-called ceasefire, that virtually all of their critical assets have been replenished or replaced. Now, we've done the same thing, but I think there was hope that Iran might be too severely damaged to recover. That's not the case at all. Apparently, the damage we thought we'd inflicted was not nearly as great as we'd hoped. So the Iranians are quite ready to fight, and I see no evidence that they're going to submit to Israel's demands, which is really why we went to war. It's a very bad thing because of the larger position of the world, and I think that's the piece that people are missing. Washington D.C. and New York City, to a large extent, tend to run a lot on drama and hot air. But the world runs on diesel. you know how do you get people to understand that diesel is bread on your table and the steel in your buildings? Business strategies have to change now. They've got to account for massive physical scarcity of food, feed, fuel, and fertilizer caused by these closures. People in Washington do not yet completely understand that you cannot print money, or excuse me, you can print money, but you can't print energy or materials. You can't print the diesel that moves your trucks. You can't print the fertilizer that grows your crops. And you certainly can't print the natural gas that powers your factories. And once again, we're back to this issue that's very dear to my heart, which is all of the rare earths. We got lots of them. The greatest concentration probably in the world is in North America, but that's not the problem. It's refining. We've got to refine it. We need to be able to refine our own uranium. We don't do a very good job of that. These things now have to happen. So where are you going to spend your marginal dollar? On another missile involved in a campaign that, quite frankly, for reasons of geography and topography, you can't win? When you're bringing the whole world to its knees, essentially economically and financially, that seems rather stupid. You're better off putting your marginal dollar into building rare earth refineries. You're better off looking at all the transportation networks, water and rail, as well as air, figuring out what makes the most sense. You need to look at hydrology, hydroelectric power. Are there ways to power things that don't require carbon-based fuels? If so, where do you put them? Where are those waterfalls? Where you built these massive dams? Do you put things there to harvest energy so that you can run these refineries? All of these things need to be examined carefully. And then you've got to figure out what you're going to do with farmers. I mean, 70% of our farmers say they can't even afford to buy fertilizer. The numbers of bankruptcies are up by almost 50%. We can't go on this way. So people ask all the time, they say, well, Doug, we've heard everything you said. You're the military guy. How long can this last? I said, well, it's a question. Which happens first? Do we collapse financially and plunge into an economic recession or worse, depression? Or do we simply exhaust ourselves in the Persian Gulf trying to make something happen that can't happen with the tools at our disposal? The Chinese have now built a connection into Iran from Pakistan that goes down to the port, I think it's called Guadrat. It's on the coast of Pakistan, not far from the Iranian border. In fact, it's about 50 to 60 miles from the Iranian border, the road. That means you can truck things from that port directly into Iran, and you can also export through that port. That port was built by the Chinese as part of a large Belt and Road project. Okay, are you going to attack that port now? Are you going to attack the ships that move in and out? I mean, this thing can go as far as you want it to for some period of time, but you're going to exhaust yourself militarily and you're not going to change the outcome. And you don't want a larger war that puts you into confrontation with China or Russia or anybody else if you can avoid it. So I don't know which happens first, but I think they're both going to happen. We're going to exhaust ourselves and we're going to have a terrible financial crisis, much worse than 2008. That much I can say with certainty. Everybody wants timing, but none of us has the crystal ball that tells us exactly when. But given the opportunity, if things can get worse, they do. That's the bad news.
With gold trading at new all-time highs, gold producers are printing money. And this means that for the first time in years, money is beginning to flow into exploration. This is a trend that we at Palisades Gold Corp have long anticipated, which is why we spent the last decade assembling the largest junior-held mineral claim package in the United States through our subsidiary Made in America Gold Corp. Made in America Gold Corp holds over 700 square kilometers of prospective ground, located exclusively within America's most prolific gold mining trend, the Battle Mountain Eureka Trend. Made in America's properties are nestled amongst several of Nevada's largest gold mines and resources, making it highly prospective for a potential discovery. To find out more, visit palisades.ca and join us on our mission to make Nevada's next multi-million ounce gold discovery. Now, back to the show. Is perhaps losing this war and also the financial ramification that could occur or will occur on the back of this the wake-up call the West might need for resource sovereignty, like you outlined earlier, to really reindustrialize, take back these supply chains home, and start processing our own critical minerals?
Well, that's right. And one of the questions that we all have in the United States is, how much gold do we really have? No one really knows the answer to that. In theory, we're supposed to have more gold than anybody else. When our European friends asked to have their gold repatriated from the United States, and most of it is under the streets of New York City. Believe it or not, there's a large cache of it under the West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. Then you supposedly have it in Fort Knox. Then we're beginning to hear things about, well, some of this gold is, what did they say? It's not tradable. It's not pure enough. I have no idea. So we need to take stock of gold. Now, the interesting part is, and I'm sure you're aware of it, there are countries around the world, the Russians included, who've recently sold some gold in order to become more liquid. Right now, the Japanese are probably going to dump large numbers of our treasuries because they need liquidity in order to deal with threats to the yen. This is the other aspect of this problem that we haven't really understood very well, and that is the de-dollarization. That more and more of the world is going to do business in currencies other than the dollar. A lot of people are obviously going to move to the yuan. That's clear, no doubt about it. And I guess the yuan at some point is going to be more directly linked to gold. I think that's the goal. Now, maybe there's somebody out there that wants a basket of precious metals as backing. I don't know. But I think gold is going to be the centerpiece of everything. I think gold is already effectively the reserve currency, not the dollar.
I believe Luke Roman makes a very interesting argument that getting yuan from US dollars is actually the easiest through gold. You would buy gold, sell US dollars, and through gold acquire the Chinese yuan, which is an interesting tidbit.
I think Luke's right. I also personally think the Chinese stock market is a much better place to invest right now for a whole range of reasons. And Americans are beginning to discover that. These are sad developments. The underlying fundamentals of any economy are always critical. And it's very difficult to find people that are credible that can talk intelligently about those fundamentals. But my perception is, and I think there are others coming around to this, is that our fundamentals are weak. They're not strong. So the future does not look great, but the future would be better. Let's get this straight right off the bat. If we suspended operations in the Middle East and got out. And I don't care how President Trump wants to dress this up, to tell the world that he's a great humanitarian who cares about people and therefore I'm ending this. That's fine with me. It's also fine with me if he says, well, we've done all we can. We'll revisit this at some point in the future, but not this year. we're leaving. That's fine with me. But this ought to stop, Stein. It really ought to stop.
I would love to talk about the disruptions that we're currently seeing in the energy market specifically. Depending on which analyst you ask, we're missing anywhere between 12 to 15 million barrels a day. It seems to be the consensus. Recently, we saw a strike on the Fujairah terminal, which was previously transporting about 1.8 million barrels a day past the Strait of Hormuz. So it was a bypass route. Do you know what damage occurred to the terminal, and does that add on to the missing barrels that we already had before this?
No, I don't, but I would expect that whatever damage has been done, there will be far more damage coming in the future. You look at the east-west pipeline that runs from Al Jabail, effectively in that vicinity, all the way to Yanbu on the Red Sea. I've driven that pipeline, and it's above ground. There's nothing confusing about it, and disrupting that would be easy. It would take a couple of well-targeted intermediate-range ballistic missiles, and you're out of business. That would be catastrophic. Then the Saudis have nothing to export anymore. And it would take a long time to repair that damage. So I think these kinds of things are doomed if this war continues. And I don't see why there is an unwillingness to admit this. I mean, the Iranians have been very straightforward. You continue to do this to us, we will do this to you. And they have followed through exactly as they promised. So if we know what can happen, let's look for a different way to do business in the future. But that's not the attitude in Washington. You still have lots of foolish people demanding, this dumb idea of unconditional surrender. And that really means unconditional obedience to Israel. And that's not gonna happen.